What if one space mission almost cost the lives of astronauts? What if a tiny problem turned into a fight for survival, 250 miles above Earth? Today, we're talking about one of the most dangerous missions in the history of the International Space Station and how humans managed to survive. By the end of this video, you'll understand what went wrong, how the crew stayed alive, and what lessons NASA and its partners learned from this mission. This story shows the real risks of living in space and the power of teamwork and preparation. So stick around if you're curious about space, danger, and survival beyond Earth. 1. A normal mission turns risky. The International Space Station, or ISS, is one of the most important science labs in space. Since the year 2000, astronauts have lived there long-term. Most missions go well, but some have tested humans in unexpected ways. In one mission, a small leak in a spacecraft led to a big risk. This was not a fire or explosion, it was slower. But that made it harder to notice at first. That's what made it dangerous. Imagine being in a house. A tiny crack in the wall slowly lets air out. You might not see it at first, but over time, it becomes a problem. In space, air doesn't come back on its own, and that's why a small leak can be serious. 2. The crew and the situation. This mission involved a mixed crew of NASA and international astronauts. They were living and working on the ISS. Their job was scientific research, but every day life in space has its own challenges. One morning, a pressure sensor showed something odd. The air pressure inside the ISS was very slightly lower than normal. No alarm sounded, but the crew noticed. They checked instruments, and soon they found a drop in air pressure that could not be explained by normal activity. Let's pause here. If you were in their shoes, what would you do first? Type your answer in the comments. I'd love to see what you think. 3. Finding the leak. Pressure can fall for many reasons. On Earth, we barely notice small changes. But on the ISS, every puff of air matters. So the crew began searching for the source. They checked cabins, hatches, and equipment. They checked air vents. Finally, they found the leak. A tiny hole in a spacecraft docked to the ISS. That spacecraft was meant to bring supplies and crew to and from the station. But somehow, a small puncture appeared. Experts on the ground traced the hole to a manufacturing error. Something sharp may have been left inside the spacecraft before launch. Over time, vibration and pressure stress caused the wall to fail. This shows an important point. In space, tiny things can become big problems. 4. What made this dangerous? Why was this mission so risky? 3 main reasons. 1. Life support depends on air. On Earth, if the air pressure changes, we don't panic. We still have plenty of oxygen. But on the ISS, the air inside is all the crew has. A slow leak means less oxygen over time. If untreated, it could put lives at risk. 2. Detection was gradual. This was not a sudden, dramatic emergency. The leak was slow. That can make danger harder to spot and easier to underestimate. 3. Fixing it was not simple. In space, you can't just call a repair service. There's no spare door or extra wall panel floating in the garage. The crew had to find the leak, measure its size, and stop it with limited tools and materials. Real life does not always come with easy mode. This was a real test of skill and patience. 5. How the crew responded. The first thing the crew did was stay calm. Calm minds make better decisions, especially in space. They reported the situation to controllers on Earth. NASA engineers, as well as experts from partner space agencies, worked with the crew to plan a fix. They used tape, clamps, and sealant. Simple tools. It may sound low-tech, but in space, simple can be smart. They patched the hole carefully, then monitored the pressure to make sure it stopped leaking. Think about that for a second. A tiny piece of tape helps save lives in orbit. That's teamwork at its best. 6. What if they didn't find it? Let's imagine if the leak continued. Over time, the station's air would keep escaping. More oxygen would be needed. But if supplies ran low, the crew might have to think about evacuating early. Evacuation in space is not like leaving a building. They would need a spacecraft, trained procedures, and enough oxygen for the trip home. That's a complicated and risky choice. Thankfully, the crew found the leak before it got that far. Their quick thinking and careful work prevented the worst outcome. 7. How NASA and partners reacted. After the mission, NASA and international partners reviewed the incident. They checked spacecraft designs and manufacturing processes. They added more inspections before launch. This helps reduce the chance of similar leaks in the future. So even though this was dangerous, it became a learning moment. The mission showed that space travel can be risky and that safety must always improve. 8. Simple tools in space can save lives. It's easy to think that space missions need only high-tech tools and machines, but then you see astronauts using tape to stop an air leak. That reminds us of a bigger idea. In space, humans are the most important tool. Astronauts train for years. They practice drills, simulations, and emergency procedures. When something unexpected happens, it's their judgment and skill that matters most. So while machines are valuable, human thinking and calm problem-solving are what truly keep crews safe. 9. What we can take away from this. Let's break down the big lessons from this mission. Small problems can become serious in the right environment. A tiny hole in space matters more than a tiny hole on Earth. Detection matters. Tools and sensors help, but human awareness is key. Teamwork saves lives. Astronauts and ground teams work together to solve the problem. These lessons can apply to life on Earth too. Not all challenges are big and loud. Some are quiet and slow. But paying attention, staying calm, and working together often makes a difference. If you've ever faced a small problem that kept growing, type "I know the feeling" in the comments. 10. Why this story still matters today. Space agencies around the world are planning longer missions to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. When humans spend weeks or months away from Earth, risks increase. We need better tools, better training, and better safety systems. Stories like this remind us that space exploration is real work, not just rockets and cool views. It's science, challenge, risk, and courage all together. Before we wrap up, I want to know, would you want to live on the ISS, yes or no? And tell us why in the comments. I'll read your answers and choose a few to share in the next video. Conclusion. What you learned. Today you learned how a small air leak became a serious risk on the ISS, how astronauts found and fixed it, why calm thinking and teamwork mattered, what space agencies learned from the incident. Space exploration can be beautiful and inspiring, but it also tests humans in hard ways. That's part of why it matters so much. Like, share and subscribe for more.